we'll see that Christ has a certain woman which had an issue of blood, 12 years it says. It had suffered many things and many physicians and had spent all she had and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. And of course she reached, and if I'll paraphrase, she reached and touched his garment and she was suddenly healed. Christ turns around and he says, who touched me? Who touched my clothes? The apostles look at him like, and the words, the implication here, what we don't see a lot in Scripture is we don't see the energy behind it.
Yeah.
You know, these apostles were saying, what do you mean, Lord? Yeah. Look around you, fool. All these people are crushing us. And about that time, he sees the woman, and she sees him, and she goes to and begins to worship him because she knew he was God.
Amen. Yeah.
She knew he was God. And he says, daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague. So another reason why God, Christ, will tarry answering our prayers is when others are involved.
Yeah.
You see, sometimes we ask God, we give him certain prayer requests, and it's not that he is not, will not. He is going to answer your prayers, but there's other people involved. There's other circumstances involved. I've been praying for some things for years. And I know the reason why God hasn't answered them yet, because there's other people involved. And until they get right with God, I can't see God come and answer my prayer. That's the long and short of it is. But we often do not think about that. We often do not think that there may be things going on that we don't know about. You see, Christ was God. He was the God-man, as I call it. It was not that he did not care. There's no indication in here that this woman's illness was she was being selfish. She didn't know he was going to Jairus' house. Now, if you stop to think about it, all Christ had to do when Jairus came to him and says, she's healed, go home.
Yeah, that's right.
That's all he had to do. But no, God had a plan. He had some lessons to teach those around him in the first century. And for us here tonight in the 21st century, he has some lessons for us too to get from this. And one of them is that we need to, when we ask our prayers, to realize sometimes if there's others involved, God's going to tarry and giving us an answer. But God's in control. He's in control of everything. He's in control of the clock, the circumstances, the people, the events.
That's right.
And I praise the Lord, he's in control of the outcome.
Yeah. Amen.
Amen. There's a fifth reason here in verse 35. It says, while he yet spoke, and that's where we started, there came from the ruler of the synagogue house certain which said, thy daughter is dead. Why trouble thou the master any further? Jairus' compatriots evidently were unhappy about his flight. This certain is used to describe people that were wanting to stand out, and they were objecting. They were objecting about his flight. They seemed almost relieved that the miracle worker wasn't going to have to come and get involved. Was that mean they were selfish? No. They didn't understand. Another reason why Christ might tarry his answer of prayers, because people don't understand. We don't understand the why yet. But Christ had a purpose for all that was happening, and there was a reason for the delays. There was a reason for him going to Jairus' house. There was a reason for him to heal the woman. And when Christ does not appear to be answering your prayer immediately, we need to stop long enough on our highway of life and ask him, Lord, if there's others involved, I want your will. I want your time. I want your way. And what we're asking God to answer, what we believe is a personal prayer, that doesn't always mean that there might not still be others involved. God's not a God of chance. He's not a God of chance. Sixth, in verse 36, as soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he said unto the ruler of the synagogue, be not afraid, only believe. He gave 2 commands to Jairus, 5 words. Be not afraid. Number 1, only believe. Number 2, this is what Jesus says to us, to you and me, to relay our fears. Be not afraid. Only believe. Dr. Johnny Pope will be proud of me right now. I want to share a historical moment with you. In 1964, 1965, I remember reading in our paper when we lived out in Southern California about the martyrdom of Christians in the Belgian Congo, what used to be the Belgian Congo. And they made a point, said it's not since the Boxer Rebellion, and I didn't understand, we didn't have internet in those days, we didn't have cell phones in those days, we had encyclopedias, so I looked up Boxer Rebellion and found out in 1900 there was a rebellion in China and many missionaries were killed, murdered, slaughtered. There was one British nurse by the name of Margaret Hayes. She hadn't been seen or heard from for about 7 months, and they didn't know whether she's dead or whether she's alive. And I remember Walter Cronkite talking about it almost every time on the radio. We didn't even have FM radio in those days. We had AM, that was it. One, take it or leave it. That's all you had. And I remember her statement when they did find her. She said, until the last, we had expected to be killed one day. The Lord gave me Mark 5:36, be not afraid, only believe. Amen. I knew that whether I lived or died, that the Lord had everything under control. Amen. You see, these are words that make a difference, words that we should remember, words that we should memorize, words that we should obey, and that is that we should be not afraid and only believe. They're words that God gave Jairus. They're words that God gave Margaret Hayes. And they're words that God gives us here tonight in the 21st century. So Jairus faced a decision. He could either believe or not. He chose to believe. And then last in verse 37 to 43, and again I won't read it all. But in Christ, he takes Peter, James, and John up into the room where the little girl lay. And of course they were weeping and wailing, and Christ says in verse 39, he says, why make you this ado? That means the same thing today that it meant then. That you're making a bunch of nonsense. Why are you making this ado and weep? The damsel's not dead, she sleepeth. Of course, then it says they laughed him to scorn. And then he threw them all out. Yeah. When he threw them all out, he took mom and daddy up there. And he spoke Texan. He says, Talitha, Talitha, Kumi, Kumi. In other words, get up, walk. And she got up, and she walked. Now, to some that would read this superficially, they'd go through it and they say, well, it seemed like Christ arrived too late, but Jesus was keeping his own clock, as I've said. Amen. He was perfect. His plan was perfect. I like the words one poet said, his wisdom is sublime, his heart profoundly kind. God never is before his time, and he's never behind. Amen. You see, if we're impatient today, having to wait on the Lord, passing signs of expect, delay, and waiting on God to answer prayers, we might consider there's reasons that maybe Christ has not answered our prayer. Stand with, will, every head bowed and every eye closed.